Today, we're going to be talking about case studies. And I hear this from founders all the time. I know I need the case studies, but then it's just not getting done. I don't have time. I don't know how to do it. People will say that they're going to do it, but then they don't do it. And ultimately, you end up with no case studies. So we all know that case studies are important. They're valuable. And obviously, they carry a lot of proof. But if you're not getting them done, then what's the point, right? And frankly, most companies, small teams, everybody's running around hair on fire, and then case studies get pushed to the edge. Whereas you know that a case study is often one of your strongest possible marketing and also sales pieces that you could possibly have. So highly recommend you consider doing a little bit of work with case studies through this process, because there are a couple of hidden blockers that I want to show you, and I want to show you how to get past them with our process that we've used. And frankly, one person can just do this, can run it, and can basically create great case studies very easily on repeat so that you have consistency and you have clarity. And you also have a real good resource that I will get to in a second that you can use to search and basically even create new sales campaigns around. So with that said, who am I? If you haven't met me yet, my name's Dan. I'm the CMO here at Voris. I've been a copywriter for a very long time, and it's going on 2 decades now. And I started off in grant writing. I started off working for the UN and other international NGOs overseas. And then I came back to the US and started working in much smaller companies, startups. And then I bounced back and forth between Fortune 100 to startups again, and then Fortune 100, startups again, and then across all kinds of different sectors. So I've seen it all. I've trained a lot of different people in how to write better copy. And one of those pieces of better copy is case studies and proof in general. So let's keep going here. Let's talk about the problem a little more specifically. And I think that it's important to consider here, we don't just want to create case studies that are there for the sake of it. We want to go for stuff that actually makes sense in a sales conversation. And the first problem that I need to call out is that sometimes people just don't have case studies. They know they need it, they just never get done. So I think that most people, frankly, probably, I'll raise my own hand here, they get pushed to the side, like I said, and then you just don't create them. And then if you don't create them, you'll never use them because they just don't exist, right? It's an obvious thing. But if they don't exist, you have no credibility. That's ultimately the big thing here. If you want to sell, you want to sell with trust. And you probably have fantastic stories waiting there for you, and yet you just can't use them. So bit of a problem, right? And I want to go through exactly why people think they're too complicated to create. This is often down to a lack of a process. And if you don't have a simple process and everybody is just ad hoc trying to create a case study themselves, or sort of, one day it's the CEO, one day it's the CMO, one day it's, somebody in sales, one day it's over here. Everybody's going to go about this differently, and you'll get an absolute wildfire. It's just not good. So we want to create a very, very basic process that you have to follow. And then you want to give somebody ownership to run that process, to actually follow through and create this stuff. And I think it's very important that you identify simple process, somebody to do it, and then expectations around it. That's how things get done. And for some reason, case studies feel like this very ambiguous animal, and it's just not the case. A process, a person, and some basic KPI or some sort of measurement stat would be a big help for you there. And then finally, they don't resonate. If they don't resonate, then you shouldn't be doing them in the first place, right? We're doing the case studies in order to market ourselves and in order to sell ourselves or our tool. And that is, unfortunately, I see this all the time. Clearly, a lot of work has gone into the case study. A lot of time has gone into the case study. And yet, at the end of the day, what happens is that you end up with a tool that is just not a very convincing thing, or it's this huge, long document, or it's this, or it's a 2-hour video or something. I have seen things that are over an hour, maybe not 2 hours, but I've seen things over an hour that I don't want to sit down and watch an hour-long story about this thing, right? So we want to come up with a way to actually make the story powerful and make it connect. So we need to be simple, we need to be memorable, we need to do all that stuff. We're going to get exactly into how to do all this in a sec here. Let's talk about the process that we use. Firstly, we have a PSR story. This is a very, very simple framework that I would encourage you not to get too fancy with. So just stick to this. The P stands for problem, and then the S stands for solution, and then the R stands for result. And it's a very logical flow, right? Problem, solution, result. It's also fractal. You can tell a long story, an epic journey about the problem, and then the solution, and then the result. But I can also tell you a one-line story about the problem, solution, result. And the basic idea there is that once you get a simple format that you can consistently gather information with and then create around, you want to use a format and a template that you like. So for example, if you have a very visual tool, you might be a little bit more video focused. You might have a lot of screenshots. There are certain software tools that are really, really good for that, to show off visually, I mean. And you want to look for something that fits you. For us here at Voris, we start with video, then we go to written, and then we go to social, which is the shorter stuff. And then the third thing here that we want to talk about is probably the most underrated point that I'm going to make today, and yet I think probably the most important. This is the thing that is going to get you over the hump of actually getting it done. So yes, I want you to use the PSR framework. Yes, I want you to choose a format and a template that you like that fits your business. But I also want you to get in the habit of saving your notes, please, in an organized fashion. I talk about swipe files every time I do one of these live classes, and I know some people do them, some people don't. But keeping an organized way to save your stuff. So that could be a little quote from a founder that you're working with, or a user that you're working with. Something, even if it's a one-liner. I loved it. Wow, you guys really helped. If you just start collecting these pieces in one place, you will have material that I promise you will be so powerful when you then want to go sit down and write a case study. So many people go, oh, I need a case study. I guess I should go to that user or that client or that customer. And then I guess, hey, customer, can you tell me about your story? And you're writing from a blank page. And that's just crazy. So I would just advise you to start collecting notes, and I'll show you exactly how we do it. So let's get into the PSR. So in terms of a problem, we want to look at this was happening and it felt like this. So if there's a measurement tool, so if there's a number we can attach to, and then how it felt. So we were experiencing this, and these were the consequences. We want to cover both emotional and quantitative the side of things, basically. So if you can cover both, that's the way to really frame every part of your communication. This was happening and it felt like this. Solution. So this was happening, it felt bad, let's say. So we decided to solve it by blank. So that's where Voris came in, right? And then we decided to take, the awful, well, often what we do is we look at activity rate and we will push it up because that's often a marker. But hey, my sales reps just aren't making calls. I know they can be making more, but I just don't have a way to track it. Well, okay, that's where Voris comes in. And then so we decided to solve that problem by using a manual data sheet where we have people fill out their own activities. And it resulted in a specific type of change. So we know that if we're gathering data, and I really mean gathering data, not just gathering feelings, because one of the biggest hurdles of good case studies, and please stick with me here on this, is the fact that people just don't force the person to give them something tangible. So if you go and talk to a customer, you might say, oh, so how was your experience? It's been great. And then a rookie interviewer will go, okay, great. And then they'll move on to the next question. We don't want to do that. This is it's stupidly simple, but I really want you to try this. If you can go from saying, oh, great, well, oh, okay, that is great. I'm great. I feel great that you felt great, but tell me a little bit more. What did that mean? I went from feeling like I didn't know what I was doing to suddenly I had clarity. So that felt great. Okay, that's good. Dig a little deeper. So since you have clarity, did that have a business impact? I'm just curious. Did that have a measurable impact? We want to go a little bit deeper if we can here. And I'm going to give you a book that changed my career. I will give you the title of it here in a second. But we want to dig a little bit deeper following this framework. So hopefully, framework is simple, and then you can dig deeper by going a little bit more specific and asking them to give you what is tangible feedback. And you'll know it's tangible when you can really get your hands around numbers. That's the simple test. And if somebody's really struggling around it, back off for a second, go quiet, and then ask for an example. So, hey, was there a specific example where this happened? I'd love to go back and hear a little bit more about the context. You don't have to be rude about it, but I think we do want to gather stuff. And as a facilitator, that's your role as an interviewer. You're facilitating this conversation. You're not just grabbing information from them. So you're helping them remember sometimes. The book I mentioned is hidden in the background there. It's the red book. It's called The Jobs to be Done Handbook, or Jobs to be Done, the Handbook, I suppose, by Chris Speak and Bob Moesta. And this book it follows the Jobs to be Done format, and it basically is a way to examine somebody's experience with your product or your service, depends on what you do, from a psycho-emotional perspective. So it's not just saying, well, this happened, then that happened. It's, well, this was happening because of this wider context that made me feel like this. Then I reached out to you guys, and then this is what happened, and it made me feel like this. So you're constantly gathering both strong data from a qualitative and quantitative perspective, and you're keeping organized, and you're helping the person along the way. Truly, this is the best way to interview people. And if anybody is going to be running interviews on your team, have them read through this book. They don't have to be a jobs to be done expert in order to get just a good flavor of what and how to, which conversations to have, and then how to have them. So consider that if you haven't. So let's just keep going here with these questions. So I like to organize my information when I'm gathering it in an organized fashion that is close to how I want to then create it. You don't have to do it like this, but I highly recommend it. It'll keep you organized, and it'll also help you see, well, I have a lot of problem information, but not a lot of results. I gotta start collecting those. Or I have problems and I have results, but I have no idea how the team got them there. Yikes! I gotta ask solution questions. You'll know as you start to fill these out as sort of categories or buckets. So here are some questions I would suggest you use. And if you want to pause me here for a second and just take a screenshot, you can go ahead and do that. So what was your number one challenge when you reached out to us? What was that like for your team? How did that affect you? So yeah, we're going from basically tangible to I guess, a little bit more emotional. How are you measuring this, right? That's a sneaky little way to get into, well, what were their North Stars? How were they using this? How did you deal with that at the time? Why did you choose us to help here? What other options were you considering? And then how did you find us? These questions also, although they're preparatory, they help you sort of figure out, well, where do you stand in the market? Good case study processes will create good case studies and more types of proof like testimonials and other types of shorter form stuff. But it'll also be a really good research tool for your company strategically. When you are a smaller company and you are just operating with a bunch of different hats that we're all wearing, that's so valuable. So I would suggest that you really think about, it's an opportunity to do a little bit of research too here. So what did you expect when we got started? That's also a good way to look at, did we set expectations correctly? It's good to sort of see, it frames what they expected versus what they got, is also a really clarifying thing sometimes for an external reader reading your proof, reading your case studies. How did you, where did we get started and why there? When did you see results? I think that's an important question. What challenges came up? And then do any specific highlights or lowlights come to mind? I like asking this question where you don't have to necessarily include all the information that you put from every answer into every case study, but I think it's a good chance to sort of say, well, was there good stuff? Was there bad stuff? Like I said, this is a great research opportunity, and it's one where if there's within reason, you can also mention something that might have been a challenging moment that you still were able to overcome. I think that's a sign of honesty, and that's a sign of integrity, and also a developing company, again, for smaller companies on here that want to create really good types of proof that resonate with the reader. And then finally, here, the outcome. Did we hit the goal? What's the next step? How do you feel about your future? What's one takeaway? I like that because it forces the specificity, and it's a good way for a lot of people like to give you lots of answers and cover a lot of breadth when answering your question, but which is nice. But one thing that is even better than that is if you can ask, okay, it's great that you have 10 things that came out of this. What's the one that was really mind-blowing? What's the one that was really, really helpful? What's the one that really, really, that you couldn't believe you got and you were so happy with? I think that's very important. And often you'll notice this as you're interviewing people. You might see a little bit of you'll watch their eyes glaze over if you're doing this over Zoom. You'll see people you'll hear the tone of voice might drop a little bit. This is good for you as the interviewer to dig in a little bit and get them, see where they get fired up. Where do they get emotional? Where do they care about? These are little nuanced bits of information, or bits of ideas, I suppose, that as you're gathering information, you can really use to then, create some slam dunk opportunities for you when you create the case study, because you'll know what they were happy about and therefore what you should probably highlight for other customers like them. Okay. And then equally at dead points, you should know, well, they didn't really care about that very much, did they? Okay. Well, maybe other people don't as much either. So consider that. Numbers, feelings, and then always be, you don't have to use this as a script. This is not a script. These are ideas for you. And what I would like you to definitely, very, very important takeaway, pause the interview, pause the questions and say, oh, wait a minute, before I go on to the next one, actually, you know what? Let me go back to that one. What did that mean? Why was that? Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't expect that. How come? Be interested and ask exploratory questions. Okay, and then ultimately we're going to work backwards to get to here, but I want to look at this template. This is one that I like. It's very similar to a Canva template that I found. Canva has some very good ones. I just adjusted it a little bit to fit what I think is a good format. And I think basically what I want to look at is it's the same type of thing. It's just I use the word challenge instead of problem. So challenge, solutions, results. It doesn't have to be crazy. It's problem, solutions, result. It's the same thing. It's the same format. This format will get you so far. I can't even express how important it is to stick to a basic structure like this. So Before was this state of events. During was this state of events. After was this state of events. It's easy to translate this into something visual. It's easy to translate this into a quick story, whether that's on video, whether it's written. So again, PSR, or in this case, I guess CSR. But anyway, so I like this format a lot. Feel free to grab this, or again, just go to Canva and look for something that looks visually appealing. The reason that I like one-pagers is that, look, well, some companies you might do great with a 20-page, white paper style case study. Okay, knock yourself out. But I'm looking for stuff that's going to get shared and it's going to have a quick impact. I care about the marketing stuff and I care about the sales stuff. And we'll talk about exactly where to use this in your sales process. But something that is shareable, something that is easy to understand quickly, and something that is memorable. And a template like this does that because it's visually appealing, it's simple, and it's structured in a way that I think is easy to just hit forward if you're emailing this out to somebody. And I'll show you exactly where we use this in our sales emails. So simple. We want to highlight changes, and we want to be specific and memorable. Specificity and the ability to remember something, that's really what it is. A whole bunch of random ideas, tough to remember. But one crazy powerful point, you're probably going to hold on to that for a long time. So here's what I want to talk about, and I want you to stick with me here because this is a very, very important point. I think that keeping a very, very organized place where you're saving your case studies, and then within your case studies, you're saving information, you end up with something that is just a collection of stuff that's very powerful. So this is a database that we have of clients. And we this database, I think, is an important point because we can come back to it and refer to it. It's got a whole bunch of stuff that if I've forgotten something, I can go back and I can get the information. And most companies that I look at, even if they have case studies, they don't have things organized in a fashion like this. So I'd suggest something like this. We use Notion. You can grab our template if you'd like. And I will... and I think it's something you should consider using because it's very useful for a whole variety of reasons for you and your sales process down the road. If you look at this database here, we have a couple of example case studies here, but let me just kind of run into one of them here. ABC company over here. What's inside of this is a note-taking template thing, whatever you want to call it, on steroids. And I really think that this is a powerful way to be gathering information. If you work with clients, then over the course of your engagement with a client, if you have users, over the lifetime of that user. And we want to be very, all this stuff is editable, make it your own, but I want to be very, very direct that this should be used from day one of your engagement with somebody. So I also have the problems. You'll recognize these from the questions that we just ran through. So you can use this as an interview tool. You can use this to gather, for example, quotes and screenshots and whatnot, images and screenshots, charts, for example. If somebody said something nice to you in Slack from a client, maybe you want to grab that, pop that in here. And this gives you a single place that you can use to run through your interviews, to then save the information, to then easily export it to create case studies, and to come back to in the future to remember, hey, what exactly happened with that? What was the story there? And the more that you can do that, the more I think powerful it becomes for several different directions that you could take it for your sales, for your marketing, for your strategy, and even for, I guess, your product / tool. So if this is useful, happy to share it. But this type of format is very, very powerful, and it's one that I've gone back to often. So we don't want to wait to save the info, right? From day one, we want to keep it organized, and again, stick to the PSR or the challenge solution result if problem is a funny word for you. And then let's talk a little bit about this. So when should you actually be asking for case studies? I think this is an important point. For me, I've learned this the hard way, is sometimes if you wait too long, the opportunity passes. And I feel like this is one of the big, big problems that a lot of founders feel like is theirs, that they're waiting for the perfect moment to ask for the case study. They're like, oh, well, I can't do it now. I've got to wait until there's this big win or until there's the engagement's over. Then I can feel polite enough. And there's all kinds of blockers there. You feel too polite. You feel like you don't have a big enough win. You feel like whatever. The idea here is that if we lower the bar of how important it is to ask at a really specific time when XYZ has happened, and instead we say, look, this is one conversation. You can have another one. You can have a third one. You can have a fourth one. You can always invite the client or the customer back for another conversation. But if you have a solid win, ask for a conversation. That's what I would do. And I have a little message template I'll show you below in a second. But how should you ask? So this is what I have learned, again, the hard way, is that sometimes I kind of default to email, and email is the weakest possible way to ask for a case study. It is so easy to be ignored over email. It's not even funny. So what I've learned is that if I'm DMing somebody like in Slack and it's an active conversation, so not just that I've sent them a random cold DM, but that I'm in a conversation with them. Things are going well. We're vibing. We have a good moment. Ask for the case study. Okay, fine. But just it's not the most powerful way, but ask for it there too. If you're on the phone with somebody, ask for the case study. If you're on a Zoom call, you then have the visual where you're able to ask for the case study. And then finally, if you are lucky enough to be in real life, I think that's an even more powerful way to do it. It's an opportunity to get on camera with somebody. It's an opportunity to sit down at a table with a real human being face to face. And it's just, I don't know. I think it creates a better asset for you, and it creates an easy yes for the person to actually say yes to you and not wiggle away and escape. So I think it's very important that you look at this real life, then Zoom, then phone, then DM, then email. But just because you can't get real life or Zoom or whatever, I don't want you to use the excuses like, oh, well, email's the weakest. I don't want to do it then. No. Big win. Do everything. I don't care what it is, but I'd much rather you do the thing instead of skipping it. Okay. Let's look at this. Real simple example of what an email might look like, or a conversation, or a DM. This could be anything really, but hey, Sarah, I'm looking to put some customer stories together, and I'd love to feature Sarah's company. Would you be up for a quick 15-minute interview about our time together? I said, real quick. I gave them a time parameter. I gave them, it's basically, I'm asking for a favor here. Yes, it is for me, but I'd feature you, right? That's nice. Something like this. You don't have to go crazy. You don't need perfect magic words. Just be polite, be friendly. And the most important thing is the timing. You want to strike while the iron is hot and actually send something like this in whatever format you end up choosing, but just send. And if they say no, so what? It's not a big deal. Don't be afraid of a little tiny rejection. It's fine. And then finally, where do case studies fit in? So for marketing, we can use case studies everywhere. They're on the website. They might go on our email marketing from time to time. They might be on social media. They might be supporting assets on specific pages. Like, for example, on a book a demo page, often that's where case studies a really good case study might live. So many places in marketing. It's endless. Very, very powerful. Very, very important. But also for sales, guys, I can't express this enough. If you are using, if you're making any sort of sale, you're probably making a claim. Hey, do you have that problem? I can fix it. Okay, that's a claim. Do you have that problem? I might be able to help. That's still a claim. My tool does this. I'll 2x your business. I'll solve this little problem. Whatever type of claim, small, big, it's a claim. And if you're not backing it up with some sort of proof, frankly, you're just making a claim. And then you're hoping that the person believes you off the back of your good looks and nice personality, I guess. I don't know. But we want some sort of proof. So in our cold emails, I use one case study. And again, I'm happy to share that if you'd like. But in our campaign, we use 2 proof emails in a 5 email sequence. So there's a proof A and a proof B. Proof A is usually a broad spread of we've done this and we've done that and we've been in business for 1,000 years and we want to cover as many proof points as possible. But then proof B is a deep dive case study that is hopefully very, very relevant and very connected to the prospect in question. And then finally, the second place is outside of cold emails. Think about follow-ups. Whether you're trying to get somebody to show up for a next meeting, whether you're getting somebody to sort of move along, I guess, in their decision-making process a little bit, what can really get them over the edge, even if you shared with them before, is basically a very good case study that is relevant to them and powerful in solving the specific problem that they might relate to. So, for example, if I'm trying to get them on another call, I might say, hey, you mentioned that I should reach back out in whatever, 6 months down the road. It's 6 months down the road. So I'm reaching out, and I was looking through our assets here, and I realized that we had this really good video that I think you'd relate to. I think you'd find relevant because company X was facing almost exactly the same problem. Add a little bit, tell them why it's relevant, but then give it to them. And that could be a video. It could be your 20-page white paper if that's the way that you want to write case studies. But I would rather it be a one-page or something quick, even a one-liner. Like I just realized that we helped similar company X overcome similar problem Y, which resulted in Z. Again, problem, solution, result. That's the secret weapon beneath all this stuff. It's a very simple 3-part framework. That's all you need. Okay? So when you have a single place to gather your notes sounds like such a weak word, right? It's your notes. It's whatever. If you have good notes, guess what? This is the secret weapon because this is your competitive advantage. Most companies, 99% of companies, do not do this. So if you do this, and you are beating out the 99%, and you are that 1% of company that really has organized stuff, whatever that stuff is, quotes, screenshots, charts, whatever, and you show up to that interview, think about what that's going to look like from the customer's perspective. They will go, holy crap, these people really, really know their stuff. But also, I can't, yeah, you're right. This engagement was amazing. Or my experience with them has been fantastic. I completely forgot about that. So the more that you can do that kind of stuff, the more that you can gather this in one organized fashion, the better that everything else will flow downstream from there. You'll stay consistent and organized, again, from planning to creating to interviewing to everything, and to even backwards researching, I suppose, for the future. And then this is something that I think, for especially for smaller companies watching this, I really want to talk about a core change story. I guarantee you that right now you're looking at your company, your tool, your product, and you're going, "Oh, we help with 10 different angles. We can help. We can create 20 different solutions for you. It's amazing. Look at all these different things we can do for you." Okay, fine. But what's the actual core problem that you solve? What was the core problem that you solved for company A? Okay, you'll see that during the case study process. For company B, same thing. For company C, same thing. And once you start doing this across companies and you start saying, the core story was this for this company, the core story was this for that company, the core story was this for that company, the more you'll then start to see a pattern. And you might realize 6 months down the road, oh, wait a minute, this thing that is happening across most of the clients and the one that is really getting people fired up, oh, that's my headline, that's my positioning, that's my core value prop, and I didn't even realize it. This happens so much you wouldn't even believe it. And as a copywriter, I will tell you that the best copy, the best moments, it comes directly from the words and the mouths of the clients, not from a copywriter's magical brain. It is from their words, from their experiences.